So in the last class we were discussing about anti-tubercular drugs. We discussed what is isoniazid and continue with the other drugs. Today we'll do rifampicin and hopefully complete anti-TB drugs. Now rifampicin is also called rifampin. Now this drug is technically has several uses actually. It is used for something called traveler's diarrhea as well. Okay, commonly used there, but it is a potent anti-tubercular drug as well. It is a tuberculocidal drug. It will kill the bacteria. The mechanism of action through which it will work is now TB bacteria, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, has a genetic material which is RNA. Now, the way through which this bacteria divides is that, let's suppose this is your normal human cell, okay, and this is the bacterial cell that is coming inside your body. It is releasing, let's suppose vacuole is there, and it is releasing its RNA, okay, single stranded RNA. Ab, this RNA to get converted into basically to divide into more copies of RNA, okay, it will depend on the human's DNA. So there is one particular enzyme that is helping in this reaction where now I told you long ago, one single bacteria cannot do a lot of damage. It has to divide, it has to multiply. All right. यहाँ पर the genetic material obviously is dividing, it is multiplying along with the daughter bacteria that are uh, being formed. In this case, there is one particular enzyme called DNA dependent RNA polymerase. Okay, it means that that enzyme, okay, RNA polymerase is the main enzyme. All right, it is polymerizing RNA, it is making more copies of RNA, but it is dependent on DNA. Whose DNA? The human's DNA. Okay, or the host's DNA. So that enzyme itself, uska naam hai DNA dependent RNA polymerase. It depends on DNA to polymerize RNA. All right, our rifampicin is basically binding to this enzyme and inhibiting this. So it will come here and it will inhibit the function of this particular enzyme, because of which you will not have any more RNA being formed. Hence, any new bacteria that are formed, those will be like dummy bacteria. It will lead to bacterial death basically. If you do not have RNA being divided, it will lead to bacterial death. That is how it is tuberculocidal. The main mechanism of action is it will not let a bacteria replicate, and any daughter bacteria that are being formed, they will die. All right. See, your Mycobacterium tuberculosis these needs this RNA not just for what do you call uh, uh, obviously for division and for making more copies of itself, but it also needs it for normal metabolic function, right? Like your own genetic material, DNA has a lot of data which is present inside your cell, and there are commands which are given from your DNA in the form of proteins. The same way for a bacteria, RNA is the genetic material will give which gives different commands. Now if that bacteria wants to come inside the cell, it wants to divide, it wants to multiply, it wants to grow, to do all of that it needs some instruction. That instruction is coming from RNA. If you're not letting that RNA divide, or if you're not letting that RNA thrive, you'll basically end up killing the bacteria. Okay, that is the mechanism of action of rifampicin. It will inhibit DNA dependent RNA polymerases, leading to inhibition of RNA synthesis, ultimately causing bacterial death or tuberculocidal. Okay, because it is killing tuberculosis bacteria. Now it has a pretty wide spectrum. As I told you, it is not just used for TB, it is used for other things as well. Though here our main target is TB, it can also be used. So obviously we have uh, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. I'll just abbreviate it as TB. One second. Then you can use it for several gram positive and gram negative bacteria. For example, you can use it for Staphylococcus. Okay, just abbreviating it as Staph aureus. You can use it for Neisseria meningitidis. You can use it for Legionella, Pseudomonas, E. coli, hence traveler's bacteria, traveler's diarrhea. You can also use it for Proteus. Okay, all of these bacteria respond well to, or rifampicin responds well to all of these bacteria. It is able to kill the bacteria. Now, There are some specific adverse effects. One of the important thing about rifampicin is that it is a microsomal enzyme inducer. Microsomal enzyme inducer. Be careful when you're giving it with other drugs which are relying on microsomal enzymes. इसका मतलब क्या होता? If it is a microsomal enzyme inducer, it means that it is increasing the level of your microsomal enzymes. Microsomal enzymes are your liver enzymes, which are responsible for metabolism of other drugs as well. Now, let's suppose you are giving a drug which is, let's suppose it is X drug, that depends on microsomal enzymes for its metabolism. Meaning, if microsomal enzyme is present, it will get metabolized. If you give a microsomal enzyme inducer like rifampicin along with, I'm just abbreviating it as R, okay? You abbreviate rifampicin as R. So if you give R with this X drug, which is dependent on this what you call microsomal enzymes, the metabolism of X will increase. The rate of metabolism will increase and the total metabolism of X will increase, because of which T half of the drug will decrease. Meaning the total duration for which X will work will decrease, because it is metabolizing faster, it will get eliminated faster. राइट ए डी एम ई जाना है सीक्वेंस में. अब्जॉर्प्शन होता है, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन होता है, मेटाबॉलिज्म होता है, एक्सक्रीशन होता है. मेटाबॉलिज्म इज जनरली फॉलोड अपॉन बाय elimination and excretion. If you are speeding up the process of M, it will ultimately lead to faster elimination as well. Meaning whenever you give rifampicin with any other drug that is depending on liver or specifically microenzymes for microsomal enzymes for metabolism, the duration of action and the T half of that drug will get affected. It will decrease. All right, so keep that in mind. Now, specific ADRs that are associated with rifampicin include hepatotoxicity. There is one very special side effect with rifampicin as well. This will cause orangish red staining of bodily secretion. So orangish red staining of bodily secretions. So what do these includes? Urine, sweat, tears, saliva, all of them will become orangish red in color. Whenever you give a patient what you call rifampicin, it is generally observed that their clothes will have a tinge of orange, especially if it is white or lighter clothes. The bed sheets on which they are what you call lying down, or the clothes that they are wearing, they will get stained. That is because of rifampicin. Rifampicin tends to cause orangish red discoloration of bodily secretions. Now, other than that, it will also cause a few GI disturbances, specifically nausea. It can cause epigastric strain. It can also cause abdominal cramps, vomiting, uh, all of that. Sometimes flu-like symptoms appear. So the patient might have body ache, chills, fever. See, it is important to know the adverse effects, because sometimes it will help you distinguish whether or not it is happening because of the disease or it is happening because of the drug. So you cannot keep on giving drugs to treat adverse effects, but at least if you know that it is being caused by a drug. Let's suppose a patient is having TB and you are giving them rifampicin, and the patient starts complaining that they are having chills and they are having body pain. You will know that okay, it is because of rifampicin, and for now the patient will have to bear with it. Okay, until and unless it is getting out of hand, rather than giving another drug for treating adverse effects, you'll simply remove rifampicin and maybe use some other drug if the patient is not able to tolerate the drug, for example. Okay, that is why it is important to know about adverse effects, at least the main ones. It will cause flu-like symptoms. So flu-like symptoms, chills, fever, and what do you call this thing? Rigors as well, sometimes body ache. I'll just write it as flu-like symptoms. There will also be CNS symptoms. CNS disorders, in the sense that the patient might become drowsy, they might have dizziness, they will become ataxic, they'll not be able to walk properly. Okay, they'll not be able to coordinate their movements properly. Ataxia ka matlab they are not able to coordinate their mechanical movements properly. So for you to walk, you need to have a proper rhythm, and you need to know what is coming after the other. Ek step ke baad dusra step aata. They will not be able to coordinate with it. That condition is ataxia. The patient might have peripheral neuropathy, peripheral nerves might get damaged, the patient might have numbness as well because of that. Okay, Those are all the CNS symptoms that come. Sometimes they might have a hypersensitive reaction where there is, skin rash and urticaria, redness of the skin. So now, where do you use this? As I told you, you can use it for TB, obviously. You can use it in leprosy as well. You can use it in meningitis, especially meningitis due to MRSA. ठीक है, pneumococcal meningitis बोलते हैं उसको, pneumococcal meningitis, and MRSA, meningitis due to MRSA, due to resistant staph infection. You can use it in meningococcal infection, specifically meningococcal meningitis, meningococcal meningitis. Okay. These are some of the common uses of rifampicin. All right. You can also use it obviously for the bacteria that I mentioned on top, the both gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. Now, coming to the next drug, pyrazinamide. So we have done with isoniazid, next is pyrazinamide. This is still the first line treatment of TB. Okay, pyrazinamide. This is represented as Z. Now the mechanism of action of pyrazinamide is not known, but what we do know is that it is very active in acidic pH. Active in acidic pH. Also, resistance develops if you give it alone. So same for rifampicin as well. If you give it alone without any combination, resistance will develop in the patient, and they will later on suffer with MDR-TB or MDR, whatever disease they have, multi-drug resistance. Okay, specific adverse effect related to this thing pyrazinamide are hepatotoxicity. It can cause hyperuricemia. Okay. Hyperuricemia is sharp increase in uric acid in blood, because of which gouty attacks can occur. Okay. Gout-like attack can occur in a patient who is taking pyrazinamide. Be careful when you're giving it in patients who already have gouty arthritis or patients who have arthritic symptoms. If you're giving them some other drug that is increasing uric acid level, for example, certain diuretics increase uric acid levels in your blood, along with pyrazinamide, it can be troublesome. All right, it will also cause arthralgia, pain in bones, joints specifically. Arthralgia. All right, so that is about pyrazinamide. Then we have streptomycin. Now, streptomycin is an old drug. Streptomycin is technically an aminoglycoside. It is also used here. Mechanism of action remains the same. It will bind to 30S ribosomes of bacteria and inhibit protein synthesis. Now, this is specifically used against extracellular organisms. Okay, because it has very poor penetrating power, it is not able to penetrate into tissue and cells. It is given for infections where, in specifically in case of TB, it is given where when you suspect that the bacteria either is in lymph or it is in blood. ठीक है, जब स्ट्रिप्टोमाइसिन बहुत काम का था, एक्स्ट्रा सेल्युलर ऑर्गेनिज्म को अगर ट्रीट करना है तो जब देते हैं. आउट ऑफ सेल इज ऑब्वियसली योर ECF रहता है या ब्लड रहता है या ऑल द अदर कनेक्टिव टिश्यू. Okay, that's okay. We're having network problem. Okay. Well, now you can give streptomycin as IM. Generally, it is given as intramuscular injection. Again, this is the same. If you give it alone, patients will develop resistance for TB. Specifically, because it is an aminoglycoside, it will cause ototoxicity and nephrotoxicity. So, some important point is that only used against extracellular organisms, specifically extracellular mycobacterium, where it is coming in blood and bodily fluids. And this specifically because it has very poor penetrating power. It is given given IM, intramuscular, causes ototoxicity and nephrotoxicity like any other aminoglycoside. All right. Then the last drug in the first line of treatment is ethambutol. This is represented by E. Right. This is a tuberculostatic drug. It will stop the growth of the bacteria. Rifampicin, rifampicin and isoniazid, both of them killed bacteria, whereas this fellow will be stopping the growth of the bacteria. This is a tuberculostatic drug. All right. Now the main mechanism of action through which it works is it will basically disrupt cell wall of the bacteria. How it does so is that it will inhibit mycolic acid incorporation. So mycolic acid is a very important substance of your bacterial cell wall. यहाँ पर if mycolic acid does not get incorporated, it will get incorporated in the cell wall, or it will join into the cell wall of the bacteria using one particular enzyme called arabinosyl transferase. So just write it this way. Mycolic acid is getting incorporated into bacterial cell wall, okay, using the enzyme arabinosyl transferase. Okay, there are several ones. Actually, they are termed arabinosyl transferases because there are several different types of enzymes. In any case, ethambutol comes and inhibits this. So for as long as ethambutol is present, that incorporation will not occur and bacterial cell wall will remain weak. But as soon as you remove ethambutol, again the same process will continue and mycolic acid will start getting incorporated, continuing the whole process. That is why it is only able to stop the growth of the bacteria rather than kill the bacteria outright. Now, there are some very specific adverse effects for ethambutol. It will cause optic neuritis. Okay, ADR includes optic neuritis. So basically your optic nerve gets inflamed, because of which some patients develop color blindness. Okay, as a result of optic neuritis, some patients will, it will be technically a type of color blindness. They'll not be able to differentiate between red and green. So patient will not be able to differentiate between red and green. This is fine and all in adults, but the problem is if you give it in a, see, agar red and green mein difference nahi dikh raha bole to an adult can tell you. If you are suspecting that the patient might have optic neuritis and the patient themselves tell you, see, I'm not able to distinguish between red and green, please do something, I think there is a problem or something, then you will obviously stop the drug, you will switch the drug and so on, maybe decrease the dose or something. In case of children, they will not be able to tell you this difference, because sometimes in children they will not have this problem. They will not accurately be able to tell the difference in colors. Okay, they'll not be able to tell red nahi dikh raha ya green nahi dikh raha. They'll not be able to tell the difference. So it should be completely avoided in children. Okay, you will not know until and unless the what you call neuritis becomes extremely severe, where it might lead to blindness. So completely avoid it in children. Okay. At least if it is an adult, they will tell you that we are not able to distinguish between red and green. There might be some problem. Children will not be able to do that. So that is the reason of avoiding it in children. All right, it cannot be accurately tested in them. That is the reason. The color blindness cannot be tested in them. So that concludes our first line treatment of TB. Now coming to second line drugs, we have a lot of small drugs. We'll not go into a lot of detail about each of these drugs. Second line drugs. Okay. Now second line drugs are those drugs that are given for MDR TB. So tuberculosis bacteria which is not responding to the first line treatment. So there is a bacteria which is resistant to the first line, or first line are simply not working in that particular person. That is when you tend to go towards second line drugs. Now this will include, go one by one, thiacetazone. Right. This drug, though the mechanism of action is unclear, what we do know is that it will interfere with mycolic acid synthesis. At least it is hypothesized that MOA is hypothesized um, to interfere with mycolic acid synthesis. Again, if mycolic acid synthesis is inhibited or it is interfered with, cell wall becomes weak. That is the vertical summary of the situation. That is how mechanism of action, at least, is thought to work. Now, this is a tuberculostatic drug. It will only stop the growth of the bacteria. It will not kill the bacteria. So, tuberculostatic. Specifically, this fellow will delay resistance development. Okay, it will delay the development of resistance in a bacteria. Adverse effects related to this is hepatotoxicity, dermatitis, and allergic reactions. So, here is hepatotoxicity. You need to make sure that you monitor a patient's liver condition when you're giving anti-tubercular drugs, because most of them are hepatotoxic, either hepatotoxic or nephrotoxic. Especially hepatotoxic can cause dermatitis, sometimes allergic reactions as well. Allergic reactions include the patient might have rashes or they might develop a fever, chills, all of that. Okay, so that is thiacetazone. Then we have the next drug. We have bedaquiline. Now, bedaquiline is a drug that will, again, it will bind and inhibit one particular enzyme in the bacteria called ATP synthase. ATP synthase is a enzyme that, as the name suggests, it is essentially required for synthesis of energy, for synthesis of ATP in the bacteria. Okay, in bacterial mitochondrial structures or mitochondrial-like structures, वहाँ पर energy synthesis occurs using one particular enzyme called ATP synthase. Bedaquiline tends to inhibit that. It will bind with ATP synthase and it will inhibit ATP synthase, because of which the bacteria will not be able to produce any energy. If there is no energy, the bacteria will die. Right? That's simple. So, mechanism of action is binds and inhibits bacterial or mycobacterial ATP synthase. Okay. If ATP synthase is blocked or inhibited, the bacteria is not able to produce ATP. Let me put it this way: no energy generation. Okay, it is not able to generate any energy, leading to death. Tuberculosis. Right, that is the mechanism of action of bedaquiline. Now, you whenever you are giving bedaquiline, make sure that you avoid administering it together with microsomal enzyme inducers like rifampicin or any other enzyme inducer. Okay, it can lead to a lot of problems. Avoid co-administration with enzyme inducers, specifically microsomal enzyme inducers like rifampicin. All right. The problem is that whenever you give this with what you call rifampicin and all, there will be excessive stimulation which can lead to, see, as such, if we talk about ADRs of bedaquiline, there is one very specific ADR which is hepatotoxicity. Hepatotoxicity. Okay, and it will also cause QT prolongation. So it will mess up your rhythm of your heart. Okay, if it is basically, if it is causing QT prolongation, it technically causing arrhythmia. Okay, the rhythm of your heart will get disturbed. Now, if you give another microsomal enzyme inducer with this, it'll lead to a medical emergency where arrhythmia needs to get treated. So the patient will go into a very dire state. As such, QT prolongation is bad, but if you give it along with another inducer, it will get worse. Okay, those two are very important: QTC prolongation and hepatotoxicity because of bedaquiline. Now, in some patients, there'll also be nausea. They might have headache and arthralgia, okay, joint pain when you give bedaquiline. The specific use of bedaquiline is for MDR-TB. You will give it in what you call patients who are not responding well to isoniazid or rifampicin. Let's suppose you are giving first line treatment and rifampicin, isoniazid. I'll tell you how first line treatment is given. They are given in fixed dosages. But in any case, when you are giving RNH, rifampicin and isoniazid, and if they are not working, that is when you start using bedaquiline. Okay, you give around 400 mg once a day for 2 weeks. Then you change the dose. You decrease the dose a little bit. You give 200 mg 3 times a day. Okay, for 22 weeks later on. Initially 400 mg one time a day, then 200 mg 3 times a day for 22 weeks. So that is how you give bedaquiline. Now, coming to some other drugs, there are fluoroquinolones that you give. We already know the mechanism of action, so I'm not going over it. So, fluoroquinolone, ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin, sparofloxacin, all of them can be given, especially for atypical mycobacterium. Okay, MDR-TB or atypical mycobacterium, which is atypical mycobacterium, उसको बोलते हैं जो जहाँ पर instead of primarily causing lung problems, it is going and affecting other organs first, then it is causing lung problems. Or sometimes it might not cause lung problems altogether, it might cause other problems. So in the morning when we were discussing about encephalitis, I told you there is one condition where tuberculosis can be a primary cause of encephalitis, right? This is when atypical mycobacterium can cause that. Basically, that bacteria is coming into your body, you are inhaling the bacteria and it is causing TB. But instead of primarily causing a problem in your lung, then spreading around, it will go to other organs and cause a problem there. It might or might not cause lung problems altogether. That is why it is atypical. It will not present with typical symptoms of your TB. The patient might not have cough altogether. There might not be any lung involvement altogether, even if they have TB. That is atypical type. Okay. It can also be fluoroquinolones can also be used for MDR-TB. Then there is one drug called linezolid, oxazolidine diazepam, miscellaneous antibiotics में पढ़े थे. That is used for MDR-TB. ठीक है, you use it in combination with second line drugs. Okay, bedaquiline or thiacetozone or any other second line drug. You can use ethionamide, para-aminosalicylic acid, amikacin, capromycin. कितने की है? All right. Now that concludes what drugs are used. Now I'll tell you how treatment of TB occurs. Okay, I hope यहाँ तक समझ में आया. Now coming to these are only drugs. Now TB is tricky to treat. Okay, that is why you'll need to use combination of certain drugs. Now first of all, coming to treatment of TB. Now there are mainly four important difficulties that any person will face when treating TB. That is, TB has a very slow division rate. It can take years together for a person to start showing symptoms. Okay, the initial phase itself where it is showing gone complex, gone focus, that itself might take some years or some months. That is a very slow dividing bacteria. You will not see it a lot on blood pictures and all because of its rate of division. There is development of resistance. It has the ability to persist in a person for a long period of time. Generally speaking, if a person contracts TB once, they might have TB for lifelong, even after taking dots the for the whole course of it. Even if they get completely treated the first time, they might later on develop TB because one or the other bacteria might be, it will become dormant and stain one of your cells, or it will increase the susceptibility of the patient to get TB again. In any case, TB can occur several times. It is able to persist for several years altogether, and it is present inside the cell, which is hard to treat. Okay, as such, if it is present in your blood or in your ECF, it is somewhat easier to treat. But if it is present in the cell, you will end up killing the cell as well. All right. Think of it this way: अगर एक cell के अंदर mycobacterium tuberculosis है and it is latching on inside your cell, if you're trying to kill the bacteria, you will end up killing the cell as well. That means a lot of your prominent normal tissue also gets affected, lung tissue or any other tissue for that matter. Now, whenever you give combination of drugs, chemotherapy as such is done in two different phases. Treatment of TB will be done in two different phases. The chemotherapy of TB बोलते हैं उसको. Now those two phases will be first phase and second phase. First phase of treatment. Then we have second phase of treatment. इसका मतलब क्या है? First phase of treatment is very intensive. Okay, it is the initial 2-3 months. So this will last for around initial 2 to 3 months. The goal of initial phase is that you are trying to kill as many bacteria that are present inside the patient's body as possible. Let's suppose there is a person who has TB, and on the whole, at the point of diagnosis and when you start giving them treatment, they have around 10 lakh bacteria inside their body, for example. Okay, now your goal is to kill all the 10 lakh bacteria and stop those 10 lakh from dividing even more. Okay, you need to do both. Kill the existing 10 lakh and stop them from dividing. Now you might not be achieve both of them very quickly, but at least the first phase is so that you can kill around 60 to 70% of bacteria, or at least 50 to 60% of bacteria, meaning you are able to kill 6 to 7 lakhs while stopping it from dividing. If it is dividing, then there's no point in keeping on killing, because it will raise the number back again if you don't stop it from dividing. Okay. First phase will be geared towards you killing the maximum number of bacilli or maximum number of bacteria. That is the goal. Okay, kill max number of bacteria. All right. The second phase is more long. This will help you destroy dormant and persistent bacilli, the ones that are staying silently inside the cells and they are there for a long period of time. That is the goal of the second phase. So in the initial phase, you're trying to kill as many bacteria that are actively participating in the infection, that are actively present in the what you call blood and the surrounding layers, surrounding what you call organs as well. In the second phase, you are trying to kill those bacteria that are nicely sleeping inside. Okay, because they might someday, whenever the patient, especially when the patient becomes immunocompromised, let's suppose later on in their life they contract cancer, or they are immunocompromised for whatever reason, their immunity is going down. That is when those dormant bacteria will get activated and they might trigger TB again. Your second phase of treatment is so that you can kill those dormant bacteria. Okay, this will go on for, so this will go on for 4 to 5 months after phase 1. All right, and this is kills dormant or persistent bacilli. Okay, bacilli, bacteria, whatever. So that is how treatment of TB is done. Now, tomorrow I'll give you the categories of how treatment of DOTS occurs and what are fixed dose treatments, and then we'll start leprosy. All right. So, hope you understood this.